Welcome to the daily FT SC Securities Market Pulse interview series. Today, we are honored and privileged to have President Ranil Wickremesinghe to get an assessment of the ongoing campaign for the election and also find out from the President himself going forward what would be his plans and policies to strengthen the stability and usher growth. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for agreeing for this interview despite your busy schedule. I'd like to start from asking as to how has been your ongoing campaign and what have you heard and seen and what surprises you most over the campaign trail?
No, the campaign itself has been very exciting. We want to decide what is Sri Lanka's path after the 2022 economic crisis.
Yes.
And what I find is that my opponents really have no plans. They want to just carry on with the same old system. Also that people are listening, and a lot of people of the view that the Gen Z has made up its mind to vote against the government is not so. So this is still an open election where people are listening and they have to decide how their future is, what their future will be. I am the one who has put up the novel ideas, going for a export-oriented economy, a women's empowerment law. Everyone talks of it. The Social Justice Commission, the Parliamentary Standards Law, the 87 recommendations of the DEP Commission, the agriculture modernization, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
No one has matched that, no one talks of it. It's either status quo or change of faces.
Okay. Right. Compared to a month ago when the dates were announced, how strong has your election bid become?
It's picked up. My whole strategy was to get in after the nomination, not before.
Yeah.
Others have already gone around
and
done their campaign twice, so there's nothing new that they can offer.
Okay, thank you. Let me focus on some of the sectoral issues. I'll start from capital markets. Given the post-stability with macroeconomic stability improving, how would you sort of capitalize on it and attract more investors, particularly to foreign investors into the stock market?
Firstly, they are looking at stability.
Yeah.
And that they will have after the elections. Then implementing our economic transformation law and the others, and to show that we will be carrying on a very stable economy. Capital markets itself should expand, and as we go along, as our lending, as our borrowing gets reduced, remember there will be a surplus in the EPF and ETF that can come onto the capital markets. But my view is that there should be a very board of trustees appointed together with the employees organizations and the employers organizations, with the right also to invest out of Sri Lanka.
Just speaking of the EPF, there was a proposal to nominate trade union representatives into the board. Is that what you were referring to? Is it?
What we are referring to is having this board or committee which will look at the investments,
right,
and there we will have trade union representatives. We already have a trade union representative. They had some issues. Yeah. I'd like to discuss that with them.
Okay.
But when you are looking at investments to be made, there has to be trade union representative, and there has to be employer representatives also, because our earlier record of investing was not too good.
Yes. Yeah. Any specific plans to attract foreign investors into the stock exchange, particularly portfolio investments, institutional funds, and what would be your message to them prior to the election?
My message to them is that we come to make that change, to open out into the world, so that we become a part of the global system.
Yeah.
And certainly I have to get foreign investors to invest in the market, otherwise we will not have the requisite monies we require to run the economy and for investments.
Right. I like to focus on one aspect of the capital markets and the SOEs. There have been examples cited Vietnam being a successful case of routing some of the SOEs diversity through the stock exchange. Given the fact that the ongoing exercise with the SOE restructuring unit sort of haven't succeeded in concluding a single transaction, was that option looked at, or are you open to listing
These
some
are
of the
the
SOEs?
agreements that we reached with the IMF and the World Bank
Yes.
because we felt this is the best way to go.
Okay.
There was certain amount of restructuring to be done in each of these organizations.
Yeah.
It was better to be done by a person who's taken it over,
Okay.
and later on they could have gone on to the stock exchange, which I'm sure
Okay.
most of them would have done.
Yeah.
We have come through on some of them, but I held it back until the elections are over.
Prior to as soon as you took office, there was an expectation about raising about $3 to $4 billion through the SOE sales. Are you sort of disappointed that it was not realized in the 2 years, or you
No, I
feel?
didn't expect that. I thought if I can get it in the coming year,
Okay.
that's more than enough, because we were going to be would have been engaged in debt restructuring.
Okay. You think that with the post elections, the SOE restructuring will gather more momentum?
Yes, it will.
Okay, and will there be more institutions included?
That there would be, but we are also looking at a holding company.
Okay.
In some cases where we have to make the SOEs into the commercial framework,
Yes.
have it as public limited liability companies with shares held by the owning company.
Okay.
And they would report on to the parliament.
Okay.
And it will be very transparent. So that we are looking at that option also.
Okay. Will the holding company be listed, or will it be unlisted and?
I think it should be listed. As long as government keeps a control, it should be a good thing to have outsiders.
Another interesting enterprise is Sri Lankan Airlines, which you all have decided to go revisit best strategy. What's the?
Well, there wasn't the divestiture group was not satisfied with the bids that had come in.
Yeah.
So we are looking at restarting it again. We are also talking to some of the local companies.
Okay, right. Just one last question on the capital markets is the demutualization of the Colombo Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
It's been spoken about for a long time. Any progress, any reason why it's being delayed?
From our side, it's more that we are focusing on other economic issues.
Okay, right. Good. On the port city, which is one of the flagship, there had been, again, there were about 100 companies have expressed interest. How will the government sort of expedite the realization of that vision and attract more investments there?
No, there's the ongoing work that is on attracting investments, but we are also looking at converting into the Colombo financial zone.
Yes.
Which will be would be an offshore jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Sterling and Sherman have already drafted the legislation. We have to draft the subsidiary legislation. But I wanted to do it after election, giving it enough time for people to discuss it and look at its implications.
Okay. With similar projects in India as well as offshore for financial, how can Sri Lanka sort of be more attractive for the investors to come and set up?
One, it's a niche market.
Okay.
Secondly, in any country, the first investors are those who have taken the money out abroad and it's held somewhere else. So this is a window for them to bring it back. Otherwise, they won't come back even. And there will be people who would use this niche market. We have to develop it on certain subjects. I think there are some areas of insurance, then others. So let's have a niche market which people would come in here, but also there will be a few specific subjects that we will deal.
And there is no hesitation in some government commitment to make sure that the port city becomes a success.
No, we are fully committed.
Okay.
And that's what. But remember, none of those can come about until we finish the debt restructure.
Okay, fine. We see in your campaign that you have engaged, growing engagement with the youth. Of course, among the youth is the preference for cryptocurrencies. What's any plans to sort of introduce cryptos in Sri Lanka going forward?
There has been a big demand, especially by the youth.
Yes.
And I said we will have further discussions in the country
Okay.
before we take a final decision. I think the youth are pressing very much for this.
Yes. I'd like to move on to the exports and the trade sector. What plans to sort of accelerate more exports? I know you have a trade, external trade or international trade related strategy. Beyond that, any other plans to ensure exports improve faster than what we have been experiencing the last few months?
One is export markets, but I think it's also getting more and more export industry, manufacturing to Sri Lanka. When some of them come, foreign investors, they come along, they know what supply chain you have to get attached to. So we have to encourage. We will have markets like you add on to tea. How do you do value addition in cinnamon?
Yeah.
There are areas, even apparels, now we can do it.
Yeah.
But others, I think we have to encourage foreign investors to come in, but they will also bring the markets along with them. That's been the success of many of these countries.
And what's the progress on the FTAs and other engagement?
Yeah, we are going ahead with the bilateral FTAs.
Yeah.
We'd like us some time to get RCEP going.
Yeah.
I'm talking with India also.
Yes.
But we'd like to have the whole of Bay of Bengal as covered by free trade agreements, and finally it will cover the whole of East Asia, Australia, then come into Europe, expand what we have in Europe.
Yeah.
So that there's a large market for the investor. That's what I will do.
Okay.
And that will promote more and more investments into Sri Lanka.
Right. In terms of institutional reforms, I know the Economic Transformation Bill spoke about single agency, bringing BOI and EDB together. That is being addressed. And also, what about reforms in the customs?
That's being done too. We are looking at, again, there has to be major reforms in the revenue departments.
Yes.
And we have to have a overall view of Sri Lanka's revenue collection.
Yeah. In terms of digitization, I know you are a champion of digitalization. Sri Lanka has lagged behind in terms of e-com on the trade side. Any specific?
We are going ahead with it. There have been a lot of opposition to digitalization.
Yeah.
Government sector, no, we are going ahead, and there will be a digitalization act.
Okay, fine, thank you. Coming back to tourism, which is one of your favorite sectors that you keep championing, any specific support scheme, or you feel that government has done its part and it's up to the private sector to expand and grow?
No, I think we all have to do it. We are looking at the moment we have a 2.5 million tourists spending about $150 a day.
Yes.
And I think they stay about 7 to 8 days. So what we trying to do is to move that over a period of time to 5 million.
Yes.
But per head will be 400 US.
Yes.
And if necessary, try and push it for another day or two.
Yeah.
So that will make a vast change in the economy. And I think the unemployed can get absorbed there. But this is a big effort by us, by the tourist industry, by foreigners who are interested.
Yeah.
We've already earmarked big areas for development, like Iranavilla in Gaul and Hikkadu, a lot of properties for development. Then we have Dedua in Bentota. Near Valimada, we have about another 1,000 acres. Most of the eastern province will get opened out. Kandy as a tourist hub, Anuradhapura as a tourist hub, and Jaffna. It's a big one. It's going to be one of our major short-term income and earners, foreign income earners, and employment generators.
Okay, thank you. To talk about tourism, the thorn is the visa outsourcing process, and then some of the decisions that you took to implement visa on arrival hasn't realized yet. What is the real problem there?
No, visa-free entry has to be passed by Parliament. So that's basically October 8th, Parliament will meet. So there's no major issue there.
Okay.
The shortage of passports also will be met by part of it by October, then the rest early next year. I didn't want to go back. We looked at the old system, but I didn't want to go. I'd prefer to have the new system. We had one exception. If they could give the old passports overnight, we were prepared to take them, but they were not. So to take 500,000 to last a long time. We are getting blackguarded for it, but we've got to face it. What it aggravated was this court order. I don't think anyone went into it. The specs of immigration is different from the specs of our company, Mobitel.
Yes.
So we had this problem. I am in overlooking Mobitel, and Mr. Alas is overlooking immigration.
Yes.
But we couldn't get the specs of the problem there.
Yeah. But between now and 8th, there is some fears of cancellation and concern within the tourism industry. Is there a alternate arrangement in between till 8th of October?
The only thing is it doesn't matter. You can summon parliament earlier, but that's a 3-4 days. Far better for the government to give a commitment. All parties are agreed to it.
Okay.
That from 8th October it will be okay. It's a legal hitch only, and that's all that we have to do.
Okay. President, part of your success is the IMF program and what it has brought, but there is also criticism that the austerity measures has sort of increased the people in poverty and hardships to the people. How would you balance these issues going forward in your next term?
Actually, poverty levels went up to 25%.
Yeah.
Due to the breakdown of the economy in 2022.
Yeah.
Since then, on the level of prices and incomes, the situation has improved. I won't say it's over.
Yeah.
It has improved because IMF agreements was to strengthen the rupee.
Yeah.
And we strengthened the rupee. It went from 370 to 300.
Yes.
Now, how much more we can strengthen is the issue which are discussed with the exporters. Some exporters are quite worried about moving, but we have to strengthen the rupee. So each stage we'll have to do after discussing with our exporters. But then remember, the price of many items have come down, anything from between 10% to 40%. Then incomes are gradually being increased.
Yeah.
So we are narrowing the gap between the expenditure and income. By next year, we should be able to sort it out. May run into year after, but next year, the target date by the IMF is 2027, but I want to do it long before 2027. Right. People are suffering, and you pick up fast, this will happen.
Right. So you came. When you assume, like, obviously you ask people to tighten the belt. There'll be hardships going forward. You think we have come to that stage and we can start being more flexible and more relief oriented?
You can be flexible. There will still be a group in society that may have to think or may have to be more careful.
Yeah.
But you can be, and more you relax it. It's a consumer it's a consumer economy. So.
Okay, right. Then this talk about IMF agreement being renegotiated. I know you have strong views. But given the fact that you also have announced some of the salary hikes to the public sector, you also recommend some reduction in the threshold or increase in threshold on the in pay tax. You have shown that there is room to sort of work around the agreement, but do you think total renegotiation
you can't do renegotiations.
Yeah.
The benchmarks can't be changed.
Okay.
But the way to achieve the benchmarks can be.
Okay.
For instance, you can do away with income tax and have that going up far more. That can't be done.
Yes.
So you can, for instance, you can have a lot of small taxes and adjust the VAT.
Yes.
But then all the small taxes again will accumulate and there will be a tax on tax.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, there is very little you can do as far as the collections are concerned.
Yeah.
Then the next is the benchmarks of the deficits that are allowed.
Yes.
Or the borrowings.
Yes.
So that's another. Now we are borrowings are limited to 5% of the GDP.
Yes.
2025 budget we can do with 5% of the GDP.
Yeah.
Because we are controlling expenditure and revenue has increased.
Yes.
But if I worked the budget out, I told them to work the budget out. If you were to include all the proposals of the JVP, then immediately your budgetary expenditure goes up, the deficit goes up, instead of being 100,000,
Yes.
instead of being 1 billion,
1 billion.
which is 5%, it goes to 4 billion.
4 billion.
And your deficit becomes 11.5 billion.
Yeah.
So at a deficit of 11.5 billion,
Yes.
rupee should be at least minimum 400. It will be more than for a dollar, maybe 425.
Yeah.
Then if the IMF withdraws its support because you have breached the agreement,
benchmark,
then we should hit about 500 for a dollar. I mean, that's a great Venezuela.
Yeah. In terms of your own salary increase proposal, you think your budget can accommodate it?
But budget can accommodate it.
Yeah.
And you asked me about the slabs.
Yes.
On the other one, no.
Yes.
There's an understanding with the IMF that having implemented this, we had other views also,
Yes.
that we can review it.
Okay, right.
So that it's not changing it. But when you introduce a tax, we always keep a clause enabling us to renew it.
Right. Then, of course, with higher revenue collection this year so far, there is also the question about the capacity to pay and fair equality in taxation. Is that being addressed?
It's being addressed.
Okay.
Main this thing is to strengthen the rupee further.
Okay.
To take the burden of cost of living out and then look at what are the adjustments in taxes as we go along.
Okay. And as per the IMF program, they have suggested central government taxes like property, wealth tax. Is that on the cards? Will continue to focus on that?
I think there will be a focus on wealth tax.
Wealth tax. Okay. And public sector, which is another interesting topic these days, is I know you mentioned that you can't reduce the public sector overnight, but that remains a real problem. How would you ensure to retain the public sector as it is, but ensure reduction on current expenditure is reduced?
Now, as far as the public sector is concerned, we can decide what vacancies we will fill, what are the vacancies we won't.
Okay, yeah.
The major issue is that we have to restructure the public service.
Okay.
So there will have to be additional money on human resource development in certain areas, restructuring and getting new people in. So there will be a gradual change. There won't be anyone losing jobs, but people may resist restructuring because they feel the old system is better. That's really the issue. But what we are considering now is allow any of the staff officers, others below 40, 1 year off with full pay,
Okay.
to go and do a sort of, they can follow some course which is recognized by the government, so that they can fit into the new structure. So even if 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 takes leave a year, it doesn't matter to us. We can they come back with more knowledge.
Okay. So you going forward, the public sector size of the public sector will remain, which is very high, will remain as it is.
It will remain, but as jobs come, there may be some who may find it better to go there using their experience.
Okay.
Especially in office work and management.
Okay. Any new measures to sort of stem the brain drain?
Only measure is to keep training more and more.
Okay.
And some of them will return, going out for some time.
Yeah.
That's why we are looking at 4 new universities, technology side. But it will be training. So that will be one major component of the economy.
Right. Some expect the proper, more faster economic growth will retain some other people who are going for better opportunities. What's your own forecast for next year in terms of growth? This year there's a 3% forecast.
We would like to have about 5%, but still people will keep going.
Okay.
And there are many reasons outside this. Remember, higher education.
Yes.
The system has broken down. Education is one major reason why people are going out. So we have to tackle the education issues here.
Right. With brain drain, of course, we have a fairly vocal diaspora. What would be your message for the diaspora now that we have established stability? And of course, there is in terms of coming back and reinvesting. You said do you see that diaspora taking a proactive role in national
I think
development?
as it goes on, it will. May not be immediately, may not be in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But as results come, they will be inclined to.
Okay, thank you. And then the issue about broad issues about corruption and governance. I know you mentioned about economic stability. Economic is priority. Comes reforms. There is some opposing views that governance and reforms are more important, which will sort of fuel economic growth. Do you still maintain that view that economic is the most
Economy
foremost?
first, but immediately governance reforms must also take place.
Yeah.
Firstly, in the constitution itself,
Yeah.
and also in ensuring there is no corruption.
Yeah.
Corruption itself is one of the biggest enemies of economic reform.
Yes.
Those who say that governance and governance only,
Mm.
well, we've been doing governance reforms for the last 20 years. We are not addressed the economy. Although the economy comes and the governance must follow it. So, as far as this government is concerned, I spoke to the IMF on the anti-corruption governance reform.
Yes.
I asked them to prepare the diagnostic
Yeah.
which we are implementing. Addition to the anti-corruption law, already we've sent the proceed of crimes bill into Parliament. Then there are so many other measures that has been recommended by the IMF.
Yeah.
So we are asking a mandate also to implement it.
Yeah.
My friends in the JVP, I won't mention name,
Yeah.
they get upset,
Yes.
has put one on corruption but is limited to the anti-corruption law.
Law.
No, you can't do everything only through the anti-corruption law.
Law.
You need all the others. So I'm asking them to support our anti-corruption agenda.
Thank you. Do you see people, during a campaign and with the feedback, are people happy with the progress you have made in terms of dealing with corruption and improving governance?
People are happy. They're saying. To begin with, I didn't interfere when ministers were taken before court.
The another topic is the underworld and the drug and those related issues. We know there had been a sort of a concerted effort. Of course, with that, some allegations have come about human rights and some other groups. What would be government's stand going forward? It will continue that operation?
I find the operations are very successfully. I was surprised at these elections. People call out and ask, are you going to
Yes.
carry on it? You clear there has been human rights violations which we look into.
Yeah.
It happens in any country.
Yeah. Coming up for the elections, in your opinion, what is at stake for Sri Lanka on 21st of September?
Sri Lanka's future, nothing else.
And you feel that people will make the right choices, given that there is so much of alternative proposals coming up in how to move forward, how to get it right.
No, I'm confident.
And going forward in terms of how different will you manage going forward in the event of a victory for you?
No, I would like to implement it, and now we have to be implemented oriented. All this time the government was policy oriented.
Yes.
On economic restructuring and stabilization. Now we have to get going. So many government agencies will have to change. Private sector has to take on a bigger responsibility.
Okay. And you feel you're confident that you have the right team to focus on implementation?
Yes, I have got this team.
Yeah.
And of course, who the team next time has to be decided by the voters.
Yeah.
We'll have to have elections quickly.
Okay, right. And I know in the recent campaigns you mentioned about pose some challenge to some of your opponents. Where do you see they are lagging, or where do you see their incompetence in terms of on responding to some of your challenges?
They are not responding at all because they have just put some populist slogans and they have really no answers to give. Because you have to work within the IMF framework.
Yeah.
Moment you say you're going outside that, then it doesn't work. I mean, basically that's my attack is you're playing popular politics, but you're not looking at the country, and they have not answered that challenge.
In terms of you modernizing the economy, I know you have agriculture spoken about it. What more can we expect in terms of implementation on modernizing the broad
I mean, basically, the private sector will have to modernize itself to become competitive. Government will have to modernize itself to keep in touch with the private sector. So the forces itself, market forces, political forces, all will work together on this modernizing issue.
Okay. What challenges do you see from the public sector for modernizing? There's always resistance for change. Having managed for 2 years,
Yeah. There will be resistance, but within it, there are also people who are for it. So you got to explain it. And I think with a lot of dialogue, you should be able to sort out the issues.
Okay. Few final questions about external debt restructuring. What's the status? Yes, there is a understanding there's elections are coming up, but are you confident in sort of wrapping it up post elections?
Yeah, this one we will lift it for. We are talking with our advisors and with the IMF.
Right. And how soon, how confident are you in terms of finalizing by in October or in November?
I'd like to finalize it fast. So we've got to look at the discussions that are going on.
Okay, fine. Just final words in terms of advice or request to private sector, number one, and also people of Sri Lanka from the president who is seeking a mandate for.
First is, this is an election about your future, not the future of the candidates. It's your decision that will determine the future of Sri Lanka. So you decide wisely, and you have to decide to go ahead with these reforms.
And for the private sector, which I think is important, you mentioned a lot about private sector.
For private sector also, it's the same thing. Does the private sector want to expand and become global or not? In these reforms are the reforms which will open up our markets, which will further cement our ties with the global economy, which will provide more and more opportunities for the private sector to expand into. So private sector needs it, the people needs it, the country needs it. We need a future. The others have not provided a program for the future. I have.
Okay. And for people who are like investors or having a wait and see attitude, you think they're missing an opportunity of coming early, or what is your...
No, I think they'll come by next year, that's enough.
Okay. Given the post-war, we have sort of almost 15 years since the end of the war. What tangible and concrete steps would you take in terms of ensuring meaningful reconciliation and rehabilitation of the North and the East?
Firstly, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the laws have come in. We will act on it.
Yeah.
I will also implement the Nawaz Commission reports.
Yeah.
We are looking at helping out the ex-combatants in the self-employment they are engaged in. So that's I would say is the major areas. Then it comes to the provincial councils. I want to make the 9 provincial councils the engines of growth for the 9 provinces.
Okay.
So the parliament can give them more power regarding agriculture, modernization, tourism, expansion of industry.
Yeah.
In addition to it, district development councils to be enacted by law. So it will be the composition, what the powers are,
Right.
for them to be there. Those are some of the requests that have been made.
Okay.
And what I'm doing for the whole country. Wherever powers have to be given by parliament, by normal law, we can do that. But the major area is development.
Yeah.
So we will develop the KKS airport. I have the 3 zones in the north. Then development of Trincomalee, development of tourism, agriculture modernization. North East and North Central are the major agricultural areas of our country.
Yes.
The digital economy, IT. So there is also the solar, the renewable energy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that can be done in the north and the east. And many of it will spill over to the north central province also.
Okay. So you feel that there is more priority given on economic development versus this usual argument on devolution of power
No, economic development will go under the economic development plan.
plan?
Devolution of power will go on the major restructuring of the government sector.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your time as well as very frank views for our daily FT SC Securities Market Pulse interview series. And we wish you all the best on the
Thank you.
21st of September.
For more latest news, subscribe to FTTV.